Hey everybody, welcome to the Field of Greens podcast. I'm John Comp, owner of Northwoods Whitetail Seed Company. We're trying something new tonight. We're trying Joe Rogan style podcast. We've got the YouTube channel running, we've got the podcast running, and we've got BraD Harper in studio once again to talk about this new venture that we've done with the full spectrum products. Now we've been running that for about 2 weeks now, and we've already gone through 250 gallons of lime and probably 100 gallons of everything else. So pretty good rollout, and I think people are understanding how good these products are. Our reputation, your reputation. You know, we're not trying to sell them something that failed in the egg industry, and it's working quite well. A lot of positive feedback so far.
Yeah, absolutely. And
A lot of questions though too.
that's what we really wanted to try to cover
Yeah.
today was go through that list of kind of FAQs right now, make sure we can kind of answer some of those and hopefully straighten a few things out just to make everybody's life easier.
The biggest thing I'm hearing, and I'm sure you've got a list of questions, can this lime, two questions. One, can it be sprayed with glyphosate? Because now you talked about when in our last podcast or YouTube video, you talked about you would rather not try to kill something and help something grow at the same time. But now the liquid lime, if we're just trying to put lime out, can we put that with glyphosate?
So the answer is yes, but I would stick to the same thing to where if you're trying to kill something with Roundup glyphosate, whether that be rely, I mean, you could technically say that for a lot of different things. You can mix them if you really want to, but I would much rather go out, spray my weed killer, spray my herbicide, kill that, and then after we plant, then come in after with all my stuff.
Okay.
The lime, the starter, the AP,
Right.
and the calcium, and just that way you can dilute that stuff a lot more as well, and just spray that on over top of everything. And I would much rather do it that way, but I get why guys want to do that. So the answer is yes, you can if you want, but I think there's a lot better way to do that.
Okay. So, but if someone's pressed for time, we get like some absentee landowners, and if say they're all the only thing they're going to do is lime,
Yeah.
then you can go ahead.
Yep.
Okay. All right. The other question I get is, can the lime be sprayed on? I think somebody was asking about a farmer actually was asking about alfalfa.
Yeah.
So it's a growing plant already.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, can it be used, and I'm going to butcher this word again, can it be used as a foliar? A foliar? Foliar.
You did it.
There we
No,
go.
that's pretty good. So yes, you can. Now, we have had a few issues where guys went fairly concentrated, and maybe it was only 10 gallons of water or 5 or less, somewhere in there. Now, because of what that stuff is, it'll literally paint your plants.
Right.
So if you're going to do it as a foliar, that's fine. Just mix it.
But you got to really bump that water rate up.
Correct. Really
Almost.
dilute that down, and then it's not an issue. Because,
Okay.
I mean, every year we're going out with stuff like that on our perennials, our
Sure.
alfalfa, clover, seclusion mix.
Okay.
I mean, look at Jake's seclusion.
Yeah.
He does that every year.
Yes.
So you definitely
So-
can, but I like to dilute that a little more.
So is there a do we have to change the nozzle size? Keep it at the same flood nozzle?
Yeah.
Okay.
You know, I mean, for guys that are looking at switching, most of the time you're going to have like 01 or 02
Yeah.
nozzle on your sprayers to start with. For guys that are looking to switch, you'd be way better off with like a 04 or 05 nozzle.
Okay.
Just to get a bigger opening, so that way you don't have to worry about clogging nozzles.
And now, we're not really trying to get the plant to uptake this lime, are we? We still want that onto the ground, washed in with rain?
Yeah, the plant's still going to take up some of that calcium.
Okay.
So it's not really a bad thing.
Okay.
It's more when we were completely painting that plant. Now
Right.
it can't do photosynthesis.
We don't want a white trail behind us. I mean, there's going to be some
Correct.
white residue, but we don't want to be kind of like when we put simazine down. It looks like you literally painted the ground white. We don't want the plants to look like that.
No.
Okay,
so it's not a problem as a foliar as long as you dilute that.
okay, so you can use it as a foliar.
Yeah.
Someday I will get that word right. I'm thinking tinfoil.
I know. You're close though.
So we can do that with the liquid lime.
Yeah.
Okay.
Probably the most popular application on the perennials is the 3-cal and the AP and the calcium together.
Sure.
That's something that goes out all the time on perennials. We're going to say mid-May, and then again probably mid to end of August.
Okay.
Like on our site, we have the information sheets, and we call that our perennial maintenance program.
Okay.
So we're doing that just before the summer drought, so we can kind of boost that root system, give it a good drink of everything, get through that summer drought, and then we're doing it again in August. That way we can try to pump that plant, have it take up some extra nutrients, and be ready for season.
Okay. I think that's it for questions. Oh, actually, no, one more that we were asked. Do you need to disc till do anything like that, or do you just spray it on the ground?
Just spray it on the ground.
Okay.
This stuff does not need to be incorporated. It doesn't have to have, rain or sun or the soil to actually break it down.
Okay.
We just need it to get washed in. And that's why
Okay.
half the reason we're telling guys 25, 30, 50 gallons of water per acre, then you're kind of doing half of that when you spray. You're really
Sure.
saturating that soil, but all you need is some rain to wash it in and you're good to go.
Okay. So what do you see for questions?
I got all those. The mixing together. So for guys that are looking to possibly completely get rid of granular, can we do the lime, the AP, the starter, plus the calcium all at once?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, you can mix those. And that goes back to kind of the same thing with the foliar on the lime is you might want to dilute that down a little more because you are mixing 4 different products now that are all very thick.
Sure.
So if you were at maybe 15 gallons of water per acre before, we might want to look at that 25 to 30 just so we can make sure we get a really good solution that's not too concentrated. It'll flow nice through the sprayer and the nozzles, and we'll be all set then.
Okay.
But no need to worry about incorporating that or spraying it, 2 or 3 weeks before you plant like you used to with granular. Maybe
Sure.
get that out ahead of time.
Yep.
So nothing like that. You can just go in, spray it as soon as you're done planting. We always have that be the last step.
Okay. That kind of spurred a thought. We got asked before seeding or after seeding. It's not going to affect the seed at all, hurt the seed at all. It doesn't really matter.
Nope, not at all.
So you can put this down then seed, or you can put your seed down then spray.
Correct. And
Okay.
the main reason why I like to do it after as the last step, because in a lot of cases, which that video me and Randy did, that was enough water to basically get those to germinate and
Okay.
grow. So sometimes in a bad drought scenario and you're putting
Sure.
a lot of water down,
Okay.
especially if you're just pressing stuff in, them small seeds,
Yep.
that can be enough to germ those if we want to at that time.
Okay.
But yeah, before or after doesn't matter. My preference would be after.
Sure. Okay.
The other question we've been getting is the nitrogen as a pre-emergent or just a foliar, and you can use it as a pre-plant situation or at planting. It's just not going to be as efficient.
Okay.
So that product was made to be a foliar application, and that way we planned on it not burning. Obviously, we don't want to spray many products at all during the super hot part of the day.
Okay.
2 to 5 when it's 85, 90 degrees. We don't really want to do that then. You might have some bad effects at that point, but we haven't really seen many, but I still would avoid that time. But that product was made to be a foliar app. So if you need nitrogen at planting, we're working on something. We got something coming in January, so stay tuned for that. But for now, granular, AMS or urea at planting, and then you can follow up with the liquid end.
What I think did you see this on? I think we were asked on the YouTube channel. What is the origin of the liquid nitrogen?
Oh yeah, so it's mainly urea based, but there's some ammonium sulfate in there.
Okay.
And that's kind of helped to lessen the burn and
Sure.
get rid of that. There's
Okay.
some other stuff in there that helps with that, but it's mainly urea based.
Okay.
Let's see here. That actually wraps up most of the questions that we got. There's just a couple small ones that we were going to go into some more detail about the other products with, but
Okay.
we can start that if you want.
Sure. Okay, so let's talk about some of the questions and comments you get on the products that we have right now.
Yeah, I think the first one is the starter. We get a lot of questions like, what is that? How do we use that? When? The best thing, literally, that's why we called it that. It's to do it right at planting, whether it be trees, seed, miscanthus, whatever. It's to do it right at planting. That way, there's a lot of phosphorus in there. There's a little nitrogen, a little potassium, but that phosphorus plus the amino acids and the carbon that's in there is going to help to give them plants a really good jump right off the bat. It's going to push early root development. It's going to push lateral branching, and it's basically going to get that plant off to a great start.
Okay.
Then that next product is the AP. That's where that kind of comes in as more long-term, feeds that plant over time. But
Sure.
As far as the starter goes, that's something that we basically put a little bit out on every crop we're doing. Even if you're high in phosphorus, because that plant can still take ours in right away. It doesn't have to wait for the other phosphorus in the soil to break down. And with that carbon and the amino acids, that's just readily available to push roots, whether it's, I mean, even on existing fruit trees, we're using that.
Okay.
It's just anytime, anywhere. And I think that's probably an underutilized product because...
The starter is?
Yeah.
Right.
You can take like the AP, and let's just say if your rate was a gallon an acre, you'd be able to cut that down, add your starter in there, and that's going to more than make up for like maybe taking a quart of AP out, if that makes sense. You're really getting so much value out of that for pushing those roots that it's really underutilized. I know a lot of guys use it for the root dip, and we've been pushing that for a long time, and that's why I'm super excited with having the micronutrients in this one and it being kind of a lot better.
What and again, we get asked a lot. Even though, so if you're thinking about these products, if you go to northwoodswhitetails.com, you click on shop, you click on full spectrum products. Okay, so let's say you're gonna look at the starter, and there's a photo gallery, and we have a picture of the front label as well as the back label, and the back label has suggested rates. But what is the suggested rate? Is it differ? So one of our food plots is really sandy, low pH, low organic matter. Then a couple other ones are, 3.5, 4, 6.2 pH. Well, out here is like 6.9, 4.9 organic matter. Is there a rate difference that we're going to use, like say for sandy soil versus what we've got out here?
Yeah, absolutely. And there's also a huge difference as far as what the crop is. If we're doing, just talk about this soil here, that's way better organic matter. We might be looking at 8 to 16 ounces on something like that, kind of generic for
Per acre.
Per acre.
Okay.
Of like a fall forage plant.
So we're not talking gallons and gallons per acre.
No, we're talking 8 to 16 ounces coupled with AP. That's where a lot of those generic recommendations that we put out are kind of coupled as a whole, because they're all going to work together. So we kind of do that because if guys are thinking about switching from granular, as you're getting N, you're getting P, you're getting K. Now with ours, it's you need starter, you want AP, and those are going to work together like that.
AP being the liquid fertilizer we have, that all purpose.
Correct.
Yep.
So we might go 8 to 16 ounces of the starter, and you might be at 2 to 3 quarts per acre of the AP. So those coupled together, that's where you're going to get that total from. On the sandy soil, you're probably looking at 32 to 40 ounces of starter, and probably a gallon, maybe 5 quarts of the AP, just to get all them crops through. And then if you look at running brassicas, that's automatically going to go up like 8 ounces, maybe 16 ounces an acre, just because we know they love the phosphorus. How many pictures have we seen of purple leaves?
Purple and yellow, yep.
So it definitely crop dependent, and you kind of think about where deficiencies have been in the past. I mean, if you've grown brassicas before, maybe you did triple 19, but you did still get the phosphorus deficiency of the purple leaf. That'd be a perfect spot to add that starter to that. I know a lot of guys are going out soon with brassica mixes, and that's just something to think about. I mean,
First, ours hit the ground yesterday.
Perfect. How many times I've heard, well, we use 200 pounds of triple 19, and we still got purple leaves. It's like that doesn't have time to completely break down.
So that's because the phosphorus is locked up in the ground?
Yes.
Okay.
So that'll get tied up in the soil right away.
Right.
But that's what's nice with the starter, that we don't have to worry about that. And that's why I say, even if you're using granular and have gotten purple leaves in the past, that's the phosphorus deficiency. Using the starter would help that.
That's another just kind of tripped a question. So do you recommend, let's say folks have been using pretty heavy on granular, okay, and I mean if you look at some of our fertilization recommendations on Nebraska, it's pretty heavy. Do you go cold turkey and just stop with granular, or would you recommend kind of weaning it off a little bit, like maybe half the rate and then use the liquid, or do you just say nope, we're done, we're going full liquid?
Yeah, cold turkey.
Cold turkey, okay.
So what's going to happen is that all the carbon in those products are going to help that biology, and that's going to kind of ramp up the utilization of those nutrients in your soil.
Sure.
I mean, that doesn't happen overnight, but at least that'll get that ramped up. And the amounts of products that we're putting down is going to be enough to feed that crop.
Okay.
So not only are we feeding that crop, but we're ramping up biology, and we're going to help break down what you already have. So if you do have high P, that'll start.
So that might be one of the reasons why we're throwing so much fertilizer at, like, say, a brassica crop, because it's all tied up.
Yeah, it gets tied up very quickly,
Okay.
just because the nutrients aren't protected in granular.
Okay.
So that's why you throw 200 pounds of triple 19, and next year your phosphorus is through the roof.
Through the roof. Yep.
The plants didn't get that. That just got basically tied up in soil, and now it's sitting there waiting for time and time and time for that to slowly break down and become plant available.
So you talked about, and again, it's amazing how this discussion spurs a lot of questions and thoughts. That this guy asked this one, this guy asked this one, but so we talk about soil biology, and this isn't really what we're going to get into tonight. The whole till, no till, minimum till. You're destroying. We talked about that a little bit. So typically, when I'm going to do my brassicas out here, we're going to till under that red clover. Okay, because I don't want to spray to kill it. We're going to put a lot of nitrogen back in the ground, and I'm trying to think how to word the question. I don't know if you kind of see where I'm going with this, but we're building that biology and helping that biology with these products. Am I kind of doing a disservice by the shallow till that we're going to do? I mean, yeah, I don't really know how to ask the question, but can you kind of see what I'm saying? Allegedly we're destroying biology by tilling, but now we're trying to help biology. Is there,
I would say when we're working up soil, we're taking like one step back, but then we're taking at least a step forward.
Okay.
Because we're adding that much carbon, which is going to feed the biology. Plus, you're putting green matter back in. So all of that, it's not really, you're not going backwards per se. Every time we work the ground, we're definitely affecting that. But if you work the ground and then use granular and keep pumping up that salt and sodium content, then you're kind of taking 2 or 3 steps back and maybe just a half forward, if that makes sense.
Yes, it does.
Because I know we've talked about before, like all my farmers who have switched, they were maybe 10 years ago at 200 pounds an acre. Now they're at 400 pounds an acre because they've just ruined that biology, and all that salt and sodium builds up. So now we need to try to flush that out of the soil, and it's just a mess.
They're putting a bigger and bigger Band-Aid on every year.
Correct.
Okay.
So when we're doing it with the carbon-based liquids, you're not really going backwards. Yes, it could be better, but at the same time, there's a lot of other things you can talk about and more rabbit holes to go down. So
I think we're gonna have to come up with a chart or something, because have you discovered, now we kind of have a pretty good, and I haven't sprayed yet, but we've got a pretty good cocktail, so to speak, of these products for the screen.
yes,
Okay.
absolutely.
Do we have and I think it's going to come down to a soil test, but do you have like a general recommendation, let's say, because everyone's planting brassicas in the next 3 weeks?
Yep.
So let's say let's get out of the Midwest. Let's go to Pennsylvania, New York. Folks, they have a 1 acre food plot. They're putting 6 pounds of sweet feast down. I can't remember too many soil tests from Pennsylvania. Let's say
I gotcha,
6 on the
because-
pH and 2 on the organic matter. So they call up BraD and say, okay, I gotta go to John's site and order some for my 1 acre brassica. What am I looking at?
Yeah, okay. With that being said, 6 pH, 2 organic matter. We're going to be looking at probably a gallon to a gallon and a half of the 3 cal.
Liquid lime.
We're going to be looking at 4 to 5 quarts of AP.
Okay.
We're looking at 16 to 32 ounces of Starter Plus.
So that's half a jug or almost a full jug.
It'd be a quarter to a half.
Quarter.
jug.
Okay.
So that's what's nice with that product too.
Right.
You can get 4 acres out of that. no
Okay.
problem.
Before you go any further, one of the things we have to talk about is storage. So we gotta
yeah.
come back to that. So anyway.
Yep. But yeah, then so 1 to 1.5 3 cal, 4 to 5 quarts AP, 16 to 32 ounces Starter Plus, and then that way you're basically covering all your
This
bases
is at planting.
at planting.
Okay. And then you might take the rest of that AP if you have some left over and a little bit of the liquid nitrogen.
In 2 to 6 weeks later,
Hit them again.
I always tell everybody, which I know I can't always get a hold of everybody, but I have them send me pictures if you want. Get a hold of us. If you have questions, not a problem. We'll try to get to everybody. I know hopefully everyone will understand we're getting overloaded, but we're doing our best. But
So-
take a look, because if you see some purple, if you
Right.
see some yellow, then that might be something to say, okay, well, I'll throw some nitrogen on it, but I'm going to throw some AP with it. That way I
Yeah,
will
this
get
is
some
not just- we're
phosphorus
not
and
just-
potassium.
The we're not really top dressing like you would granular. We're doing a second spraying. We're not just doing nitrogen. We're still trying to feed the whole plant.
Correct.
Where a lot of the old style, the old recommendations, ours included, was urea. But I would ask them, what did you use at planting? Because if
Right.
you didn't use enough P and K at planting, we would top dress with maybe 50 pounds of maybe 624-24, triple 19, and then also some urea.
Correct.
But we're not going to just do nitrogen unless it's a bright, beautiful, growing green plant. We might just do nitrogen then.
Yeah, so if everything looks really good, you got good green color, everything's growing nice, and maybe you just want to give it a little boost, that's where it'd be, 1, 2, maybe 3 quarts of liquid N per acre. But if you have some yellowing, if you have some purple, if it's something that it's just not where you want it to be,
Right.
a lot of the times nitrogen's not going to fix that
Right.
completely.
That's
so,
not what we're looking for.
Yeah.
It'll help, but not cure the green. I'm sorry,
Exactly.
the yellow or the purple.
So normally we'll throw like 1 quart AP, 2 to 4 quarts nitrogen, and then you can just go spray that on top. We normally say 2 to 6 weeks after planting. Normally we try to time that when guys are there throwing rye,
Yeah.
and then that way you're already there, you're already doing stuff, you're out and about, you're back there.
So you're going to flatten some brassicas depending on what stage they're in. They may come back, they may not. But I think you said you'd rather do a little bit of harm, but a whole lot of good.
Yeah, if you think about the amount of technically acres that your tire tracks are running over compared to the area you're spraying, I mean that's not very big.
Right, and I just tell people if you get a kill on those tire tracks, just fill it in with rye.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're going to do a lot more good on the other 95% that you
Sure.
sprayed and doesn't die than the few percent that did.
Okay. What else you got for questions?
Let's see
Comments?
here. Well, I think that kind of covering that generic rate on those brassicas, when you look at guys that are in Michigan, that's just going to get bumped up a little bit. Maybe there's lower pH, maybe lower organic matter.
Further north you go.
Yeah, super sandy.
Yep.
Those rates will just get increased a little bit, and that's kind of where the rates on those jugs kind of came from. Is okay, we don't have a soil sample, kind of less than adequate dirt, then you can follow those, and that should really help.
Okay.
But for, I guess, a lot more accuracy, that's why we want guys to send us soil samples. Kind of tell us what you put on before, what you grew last. That'll really help a lot to get more accurate. I guess kind of just touching on that, the other question was using the AP with the starter, because that way you can completely switch from granular.
Okay.
You are covering all your bases at that point. We're getting a ton of phosphorus, we're getting a good amount of potassium and a little nitrogen. So guys are asking, well, if I threw 100 pounds, maybe half the granular, and do your program, is that fine? And my answer was yes, that's fine, but you wouldn't have to do the granular. Like my recommendations that I'm giving people are 100% liquid, nothing else added, unless I say, hey, you should throw some urea there or
Okay.
AMS. So you are able to 100% switch from granular with this whole line of products we got.
Liming. So somebody gets 4.851. I still, because they have to move that number so much, and we want to permanently move it, I tell them both.
Yep.
I would say,
I say do your math
okay.
and make sure what's cost efficient. Most of the time it is
Right.
adding some ag lime if you
Yes. Okay. Pelletizer egg
can.
line.
Yep, if you can. Once you're that low,
Yeah.
I do the math. Okay, let's just say you send me a soil sample. I say 3 gallons of 3-cal. You can do that math to pencil that out over the course of the next years, and it's like, yeah, that actually is worth throwing Pel Lime.
Right. So, okay, now again, this has spurred another question I had yesterday. Do you have, and I just tell folks that I don't really think it really matters. They're trying to, what does a 3-cal gallon equate in pounds of pelletized lime? And I said, well, that's in my opinion. I said, Brad's the one that's going to be able to answer this. I said, but in my opinion, I said, it's kind of a moot point, okay? Because if you're at 4.9 or 5.2, I'm going to recommend 2 to 3 gallons, okay? I couldn't tell you what you need for Pel Lime. I have no idea.
I don't.
But you're talking tons and tons and tons of it. However, you're going to have to do the 2 to 3 gallons every year, okay? But when you're that low, I think like on the lease ground that we're at, it's that low. So in the springtime, I'm still dropping pelletized lime because I'm trying to move that number permanently or
Correct.
for long-term effect, but for the short-term effect, we're dumping a lot of 3-cal on it.
Well, that's what that product really wasn't made to permanently
Yeah.
every year do that.
Right.
It's just not cost effective at that point.
But it's a question that so many people
Yeah.
ask because they want to know, okay, 1,800 pounds of pelletized lime at Timmy's Feed Mill or Menards or whatever, it's going to cost me $700 or whatever. Okay, if I buy 3 gallons of 3-cal from John, with shipping it might be $210.
Yep.
Okay, so I think they're kind of looking at it that way, but I don't know if there's really a physical number I can say that 1 gallon of 3-cal equals 1,850 pounds of pelletized lime, because I think there's too many variables.
There is a lot of
Right.
variables, and we've gone over that in the past. Kind of, exactly how much is that? What's the CCE of that lime? What mine's that coming from? And you can go down that road.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the easier answer when guys are saying one or the other, or a combination, that's most likely when you're down in the 4s or super low 5s.
You need both.
It's still worth doing both.
Sure,
Because that just
sure.
cuts your amount of 3-cal down.
Yep.
Now, I have who knows how many people that don't do any Pel lime and they're that low. But they maybe can't get a lot of stuff up there.
Sure.
So they're not hauling a trailer up there.
Right.
They just don't really have a choice, and at the end of the day, it's just not worth it.
Yeah.
But if you can, that would still be worth it.
Would
You'll
you-
save money in the long run.
When it's that low, what about, and I'm just kind of throwing this out there because I'm sure somebody out there listening or watching is going to think about this. I can't get a lime truck. I can't get spreader. I can't, what about a dual spraying? What if I did 2 gallons in the spring and 2 gallons in the fall planting?
So for guys that are doing spring planting, if you were going to do 2 and 2, or let's just say the recommendation was 3 gallons, you'd be better off going like 2.5 or 3, the full rate up front.
Yep.
And then just coming back with like 10% in the fall.
Okay.
So if it was
But
3,
that's only if it's really down there. If you're a 6, 5, 6,
oh no, then
you don't
just
need to do a
once.
dual. Yeah.
For the guys that don't do spring plots, then that's nice. You're just doing that at fall time. You don't have to worry about it. For spring plots, we want to get that pH up because most of the time we're trying to build soils or outcompete some weeds.
Right.
So we still want to get that up there. So we're going to do most of that up front at spring planting, and we'll just come back in the fall with a little bit.
Okay.
Splitting that evenly, it's not going to do what you want it to do. You're better off getting it up there. And then over time, when you think about all the rain and how the liquid lime works, that pH is going to slowly come down. So by the time we get to fall planting, we'll add just a little bit to bump it up.
Okay. All right. So a couple more topics you want to cover before we shut her down?
Yeah, I think something that should be talked about with all the testing we're doing right now. A lot of it's been a couple years in the making. We're really close with some new products, kind of on one hand, but then on the other hand, it was kind of going back for more data just to make sure and kind of figure out where that price point should be in order to basically do a good job for you guys. So we're testing some more stuff, and we got some interesting stuff coming, and I'll kind of let the cat out of the bag a little bit, but coming up with a product for sandy soils to really help, I'm going to say, cut some time off from the soil building and just trying to build that organic matter. So we've been playing with that, and so far the results have been awesome. We just got a bunch more tests going out this fall, so that's something we're playing with and kind of try to really dial that in and try to figure rates and all that. So that's pretty interesting. I'm excited about it.
One thing, just a thought here, understand this, is that, working with Brad and some of these products, he's coming up with, we're working on together, we're not doing this for the sake of putting another product on the shelf. A lot of these products are being tested on our grounds that are, and we've done some videos, it's the absolute worst ground I've ever seen in my life. And I've said this time and time again, I really enjoy the challenge. But when it doesn't rain, it's quite the challenge. But so these are products that not only are going to help me personally, but it's, we understand here that not everybody's got the great, Illinois soil, Iowa dirt. Okay, there's a lot of crappy ground out there, and we're trying to help people. We're trying to lessen the curve, so to speak. Okay, we're trying to help them get there quicker, because I know the frustrations personally of farming in sand and crappy ground for years here in Upper Michigan because, let's just face it, this I swear to God, the glacier came through and just took a big old dump in Menominee County with all the gravel and the clay and the rock and stuff, and we're left to farm it. So, but anyway, so that was one of the products we're working with. We're testing it. We got it in a bunch of people's hands that we trust, and we're going to see how that works out. But what I like about what you're doing is not only okay, how did your plants react? What did the plot look like compared to this? You're doing soil tests and getting physical data, actual data.
Yeah, and I think just to kind of touch off of what you said, for all the soil samples we look at, that's kind of how this whole thing came together with Full Spectrum.
Sure.
It was just soil sample after soil sample by the hundreds, and when you start to see so many people having the same issue,
Right.
and it's like, okay, what can we do to fix
Right.
this?
Everybody can fix the NPK part of it.
Correct.
Okay, but we want to fix this little nuance over here in the corner that if I get this fixed, this is really going to make a big, big deal.
Absolutely.
We're fixing the easy stuff, the NPK, and some of the micros. Anyone can do that.
Correct.
But what you're trying to fix, no one's trying to work on right now.
Correct. I think we're just digging deeper and
Yep.
just seeing so many samples, and it's like, okay, you're making your notepad.
Mm-hmm.
How can we work on this? And just a lot of it taking a lot of time, but really interesting stuff, and I think it's going to help a ton of people out.
Yep.
So we're excited.
Yeah, we've got some really cool stuff we're working on this fall, and it's going to be a little while, but so far so good with all the results we've seen.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah, I think just to kind of end on that note, for all the guys getting soil samples, I'm going to throw this out here now. I'm working on it. Just know we're always a couple days behind, especially this time of year. I think that's something we get so many phone calls of, hey, I just got my soil sample back. You got my Rex done? And it's like, well, we're working on it. So I'm just throwing that out there now.
yeah, and then keep that in mind. We were looking at like say a Rock River Lab stuff, but now when folks are messaging me for recommendations on the liquid, I immediately send them to Brad. So
Yeah.
you can cut the middleman out and go right to him.
Yep.
Is
Go
there
to our website,
yeah.
harpergs.com. We're on Facebook, Instagram. Easiest way is to get on our website and put in a form. Just throw us whatever questions you got, and we'll get back to you as soon as we can. But that does make it kind of easier for both of us because
Right.
we're talking throughout the day, and it's much easier. Send that my way, and then you can throw your orders and seed questions over to John.
Yeah, we've been going through it really quickly. So, hopefully we answered a bunch of questions tonight, but I think you're coming back up here in 2 or 3 weeks. You're going to bring us some more.
And I'll need more seed by then.
You'll need more seed by then, and we will be smack dab in the middle of planting season. So how about this? This is something we tried new tonight, and I hope it's working. It seems like the camera's rolling. If you've got questions, and this isn't for the podcast folks. These are for the folks that are watching on YouTube. If you've got questions, by all means, ask them in the comments below. Okay, we'll try to put something together in 2 to 3 weeks. That if you've got a question on the full spectrum products and it's something that we didn't cover tonight, by all means, ask them in the comments below. We'll try to get that. We'll put that all together, and the next time we get together, we'll try to answer those questions. And for the folks listening on Field of Greens podcast, you can go to our YouTube channel, Northwoods Whitetails Seed, and I'm not sure what episode this is, but it'll talk about the questions with Brad. And if you have questions, go to the YouTube channel, ask, or else you can just reach out to us on our website, northwoodswhitetails.com. There's an icon in the lower right-hand corner where you can actually send us a text message.
Yeah.
And I can kind of set that off to the side so when we get together again, we can have these questions and answer them.
That's something on our website too for our submittal forms. If you're on mine, just go in there, put all your info in there, ask your question, and we'll just take some notes and just keep trying to answer them that way. Just try to get everybody taken care of.
Sure, sounds good. So hopefully this is something brand new, the YouTube channel and the podcast running at the same time, kind of Joe Rogan style. But, it's rather than trying to shoot down at the studio, the office studio, trying to do a YouTube video and then coming up here and doing another podcast and talking about completely different things. Let's just do it all at once. So I hope it worked though.
Especially right now when it's just heat of the moment.
Oh man,
going crazy.
To actually get an hour right now. We're so busy. I mean, you saw another Monday. You saw one out today. We had semis here. UPS was here. FedEx was here.
Pretty sure there was what,
There's
6 or
about
7
six or
pounds?
seven guys picked up their own seed,
Oh,
and yeah,
that's, we
yeah,
had 10 pounds.
yeah, we had 10 or 12 pallets go out the door
Plus
that you saw,
mine.
plus yours. Yeah, so it's very blessed, very thankful, everybody. So hopefully this works out. Again, if you got questions, ask them in the comments below. Otherwise, we will see everybody in a few days.
Sounds good. Thanks.
All right, thanks, Brad.